Hi, this is Tara McGillicuddy, host of ADHD Support Talk Radio, and it's almost time for the new year. It's almost time for 2018, and I am rebroadcasting some of our past episodes between now and the beginning of 2018. And this one is about goals and New Year's resolutions with Dr. Stephanie Sarkis. And just like to remind you that the ADHD Support Talk Radio podcast is sponsored by ADDclasses.com. Sign up now for a free webinar by going to www.addclasses.com. I would like to welcome back Dr. Stephanie Sarkis to ADHD Support Talk Radio. In just a moment, we're going to be talking about New Year's resolutions and adult ADD and adult ADHD. Welcome back, Dr. Sarkis.
Thank you, Tara, and thank you for having me on the talk show again. I really appreciate it.
Okay, great. Before we start talking about New Year's resolutions and ADHD, can you let our listeners know a bit about yourself and how they get in touch with you after the show?
Sure. I am a licensed mental health counselor and also a national certified counselor. It's a board certified counselor. And I am a AMCA diplomate, which means that I worked a lot with mental health over the years. AMCA is a mental health organization for professionals, and I'm a clinical specialist in child and adolescent counseling. I've written 5 books on adult ADHD, and there's a 5th workbook coming out in 2017 about executive functions in adults. So that's pretty exciting. And my website is stephaniesarkis.com. That's StephaniesArkis.com.
Okay, great. Definitely check out her website. And your books are great. And one of the things I love about your books is they're very ADD friendly. They're full of great information, but they're easy to read.
Yes, and I wrote them specifically with short paragraphs, so you could read a little bit, put it down, pick it back up again, not even go to the same page, go to something totally new, and you can just pick up where you left off. So, again, it's a book that if you have a hard time focusing on reading, it's ideal with the format that it has.
Okay. So it's the beginning of 2017, and I thought I'd have somebody on to talk about New Year's resolutions because even if we're not making any, we're thinking about them. Everyone else is making them, so they're really popular right now. So where would you like to get started when it comes to New Year's resolutions?
Well, New Year's resolutions are pretty interesting because it's basically goal setting, just like we do during the year. And for a person with ADHD's perspective, it can be really hard for us to come up with goals. You have to think of a realistic goal, one that you may be able to achieve. You have to look at what steps you're going to take to get to that goal. And it's really tough to do that breaking down of thinking, of objectives and goals. And also when you're ADHD, you want to get things done right away. So if you create a resolution, it takes about 30 days to have a habit kick in. And when you have ADHD, you want the habit to kick in 2 days. So sometimes we kind of set ourselves up for it not working because we really kind of push too hard. And that's just the nature of having ADHD, right? I mean, that's the impatience part is that you want to get things done now. So that's kind of where we come from with resolutions. And, just for anybody, ADHD or not, they can be hard to stick with. So maybe we could talk a little bit about how to make sure you stick to your resolutions and how to create reasonable resolutions, and also, what the goal is. Your overall goal is to improve your lifestyle. And we need to look at, if you're trying to do more exercise, we want to look at it more like you're not trying to do more exercise, you're trying to improve your lifestyle. And I think if we look at it that way, it's a lot easier to achieve.
Yeah. So what do you start with? Do you start with the goal first, making it realistic? Where do you begin when it comes to goals and resolutions?
Well, first, I would look at, how did things go in 2016? Were there things you wanted to change? Maybe you took notes. If you journaled, journaling's really helpful because you can look back through your journal and say, oh, there's an area I wanted to work on. Or maybe it's just something that you've noticed in the last couple of days that you tend to get pretty frustrated when you're driving. Or you've noticed that you tend to eat when you're bored, which happens quite a bit for people with ADHD. And so really focus on what you would like to change. And even if it's not a New Year's resolution, you can always focus on changing it later on. So part of the pressure of New Year's resolutions is, you're like, oh, I got to do it because it's January 1st. But keep in mind that any type of little change you make counts. So it doesn't have to be a huge New Year's resolution. You want to cut yourself a little bit of a break too. So, but with New Year's resolutions, again, look at, what you'd like to, what's your ideal self? Close your eyes for a second and think about what would things be like if things were the way you want them to be? What would it look like when you woke up in the morning? Would you have your outfit for work all laid out? Would you maybe be retired? And just being able to do what you want to do during the day? Where would you be living? How would your finances look? Would you have an emergency savings account set up? Really take a look at how things would be if they were well, and then start from there. So let's say you think, well, I don't have a lot of money saved up in my emergency account. You want to have about 6 months of expenses saved up just in case. And so one of the ways to start that is you say, well, okay, so I'm going to start kind of slowly. So every paycheck, I'm going to put 10% of that into saving. And your bank can automatically do that for you. And so then after a while, you say, every paycheck, I'm going to do that. Okay, so then you take a look at how much money you have after about a month. And you can even set a money goal. You can say, okay, by the end of next month, I'm going to have $500 put aside. And then you say, okay, in 2 months, I'm going to have $1,000 put aside. And you create a visual. Visuals really help. There are apps that will help you create goals and do visuals. You can even, draw like a little thermometer. And whenever you add money to the account, you fill in the thermometer how much money you've earned. So it really helps when you have ADHD to have some kind of visual cue. So that's a little bit how you set up your resolutions. Now, so there's some schools of thought that you want to kind of keep your resolutions to yourself, but studies have found that the more people you tell about your resolutions, the more likely you are to fulfill them, because there's something called social consistency. And social consistency is, when we're humans, we like following through on what we tell people. We like to look good. So if you tell your friends, I'm going to put away 10% of savings every month, or you tell your friends, I'm going to go out walking every day, you're going to do it because, again, you've told people, and as humans, we want to look good. Social consistency.
So the more people we tell, the better. That's something I haven't heard before, but it makes sense. I know myself, when I let people know I'm working on something, I am more likely to do it. So that makes perfect sense.
Yes, it's an accountability thing, and that's so important when you have ADHD, to have an accountability person. And I'd also tell people, think about who you want to tell. Make sure it's somebody that's positive in your life, that's encouraging. Sometimes when you tell a mentor, like somebody you look up to, and you tell them your resolution, that helps even more because you hold them in really high esteem. So you're more likely to fulfill your obligation because you told somebody that's kind of really important to you. So really important, again, to kind of figure out which people are in your kind of inner circle of positivity and let them know your resolution. That's especially important.
And that will probably help you make it more realistic, too, if you're telling people you really want to do it. So your goal or your resolution will probably be a bit more realistic than if you're the only one who knew about it.
Exactly, right. And there's something about ADHD that we'll have a thought in our head, and then when we say it out loud, it kind of occurs to us, like how we need to change it up. So I think that's helpful, too, when you tell your friends, is you need not just text them your resolution, but tell them. And then also when it comes out of your mouth, you're like, maybe I need to change that up a little bit. So, it's a processing issue. So, yeah, and I think with trusted friends and family, they'll tell you, well, how about, instead of like wanting to run a 10K marathon, tomorrow, how about you work on, just walking around the block like every day for 2 weeks. So it's a gentle kind of reframing, I call it, of what your goals and objectives are. And then you can work your way up to the 10K. That doesn't mean it's not your goal anymore. It's just you got to kind of start a little bit slower. And again, for ADHD, that gets really tricky for us to do things kind of slowly.
That's good. So what's next when it comes to resolutions?
Well, resolutions also, I keep in mind, anytime you make any kind of progress towards it, it counts. Because sometimes when you have ADHD, you feel like, well, I need to get this all done. And if I can't, let's say, your resolution is you want to, like, let's say in my case, I want to work on writing my book 2 hours every day. And I tell myself, well, if I can't write 2 hours, I'm just not going to do it because what's the point? And But because that's an ADHD way of thinking. But if you tell yourself, even if I work on this 5 or 10 minutes, that counts. It counts. And we need to give ourselves pats on the back and positive reinforcement for even doing a little bit of our goal. And positive reinforcement and rewards are really important when you have ADHD. So, for instance, you're trying to quit smoking, which that's a big issue for a lot of people with ADHD. There's a study that found that if you quit smoking, regular smoking quitting programs or cessation programs don't work very well for people with ADHD. So if you're in a smoking cessation program where they give you kind of a dollar amount every time you quit, so they give you like $10 every week that you quit, that doesn't work well for people with ADHD. They actually need to have the dollar amount bumped up every week. So they need to be given $10 the first week, $15 the next week, $20 the next week, because the ADHD brain likes novelty and new stuff and reward. So really important that for the amount of time that you're achieving your resolution, that you kind of bump up your reward. And a reward could even be kind of verbal statements from your friends and family saying, hey, good job. I've noticed that you're walking outside more. I noticed that you're spending more time picking up your stuff at the end of the day, and I really appreciate that. People with ADHD, we really feed off that positive reinforcement. So, again, another reason why it's really important to surround yourself with positive people.
That makes perfect sense. And I like you need to increase or change up your reward. That makes so much sense, because a lot of us, we will get bored with the same reward, or if you look at consequences too, those consequences weren't severe enough. So that's something to really look at.
Right, and then people with ADHD don't really respond well to consequences. It doesn't click. So that's why positive reinforcement, again, is so important. And positive reinforcement doesn't have to be something expensive. Again, it could just be a friend or family member telling you you're doing okay. And you can even say, when you tell the friend or family member about your resolution, hey, would you mind every so often, like letting me know how I'm doing, or, giving me some reinforcement. Again, even if you're asking for it, if you're saying, please, compliment me if you see me doing my resolution, even if you're asking somebody to do it, it still helps your brain to hear that, positive feedback. Yep. And again, positive feedback could be, just taking a break one day and just, going for a walk in the park. I mean, whatever it takes for you to kind of slow down and appreciate the work that you've done. And that's different for everyone. So something I also recommend for people is to write down, what's a reward to you? Could it be that you watch, an hour of TV uninterrupted? Could it be that you have time to work on your knitting? Or could it be that, you go to the spa or something? What's your idea of a reward? Could it be you just need somebody to tell you you're doing a good job? So, and those are different for everyone. So I'd actually literally write down a list of what rewards are to you. It could be having an hour to read a book to yourself and nice and quiet. So again, really important that we write stuff down. And also writing things down helps you fulfill your New Year's resolution too. The more you write things down, the more likely you are to get it fulfilled, because you're making kind of a written contract with yourself. And, show that written contract to your friends and family members and say, look, this is what I wrote down that I want to accomplish this year. And, I'm kind of making myself stick to it by telling you. And again, when you write it down, even sign it like a contract and say, I will, go for a walk every day. And again, when you write it down and sign it, you're much more likely to fulfill it. And use apps to keep track of your progress, too. Again, there's several habit tracking apps that you can check off when you've accomplished something. So take advantage of those, too.
Yeah. I always tell people to write things down, but this is one of the first times I've heard somebody talk about signing it. That does make it so more official when you have your John Hancock on it. So that's something.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, our
Mm-hmm.
signature is something that we hold very precious to ourselves, because you can't duplicate it. It's individual to us. It's like a fingerprint. So when you write your signature down, and we connect that with contracts, too, that we sign for work or for other things, it really makes it solidified into your brain that this is a serious, important thing. Mm-hmm. So again, sign your contract. So, I promise myself that I will, walk every day, you say, and then you just have a little line at the bottom and you do your signature. And take a picture of it and keep it on your phone and take a look at it every once in a while. And keep in mind, too, like, let's say your resolution is walking every day around the block a couple times just to get outside and get some exercise. And when you are feeling like you don't want to do it, keep in mind that sometimes you don't have to want to do it, just do it. We don't have to like what we're doing. Just get out and move. And sometimes when you start moving, then you actually enjoy it. Because ADHD is an issue with motivation, not attention. So it's the motivation piece that's off a little bit. So again, if you wait till a time that you're all excited to go out walking, it may not happen that day. So again, you just, even if you don't feel like doing it, push yourself and you might wind up enjoying it.
Now, is there any difference when it comes to writing down, like physically writing it with a pen or a pencil versus typing on a computer or a phone?
I think whatever works for people. I think sometimes for people with ADHD, handwriting is difficult. There's various reasons for that. One is a hand and motor coordination issue. One's a processing issue. Some people use dictation, and they speak things into their device or laptop, whatever works for somebody. It's just the fact that you're actually seeing it. And so that's the most important thing. And the study didn't really specify, what kind of writing it was, but in my feeling is you're connecting, whether you're typing something out or you're writing it out, you're connecting with what you're thinking and your thought processes. So I would think either way works. And again, sometimes handwriting just is really difficult for people. And so, again, I'd recommend, look at dictation software. There's a lot of free dictation apps available now, and that makes writing so much easier for people.
And I'm glad you brought up the dictation, because that was something else I was going to ask you. You don't have to physically write it. You can speak it, but it's important that you can see it after it comes out.
Exactly. And again, when you speak something, sometimes we realize when we say it out loud that we need to change up our thought processes, because sometimes what you're thinking and what you say are two different things too. So it really helps you kind of mull over your goal or resolution to find one that fits you a little bit better.
Okay. Now, is there anything that you haven't discussed today about ADHD and New Year's resolutions that you feel is important to talk about?
I just kind of reiterate that it's important to find goals that are stimulating but also achievable. And again, running them past, like a coach or a counselor or a trusted friend or family member is really important to make sure that it's something that you're reaching for, but it's not so high that you can't reach it at all. And again, take little steps towards reaching your goal, and every little bit counts, and reward yourself. Those are the most important things. And again, you don't have to do resolutions at New Year's. You can do resolutions anytime you want. So if you're feeling a lot of pressure to do them, keep in mind, again, any progress that you make is fine. And again, you can always start changing your behavior anytime. And it does take about 30 days for behavior to completely change.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know a lot of us wake up on January 1st, new energy, new year. We just expect everything's going to be changed and be different. But what you're saying is it's a process and it takes time. So that's important for people to realize.
Right. When you have ADHD, you really don't like hearing that. You want stuff done now.
Yeah.
And there's always that saying like, oh, it's not the destination, it's a journey. People with ADHD are way more into the destination, right? Like we want to get there. We don't care about the journey part.
Yeah.
So part of it is, again, being easy on yourself and making those little benchmarks of, okay, I walked around the block today. I'm going to, put a check in that box. Okay, I walked around the block the next day. I put a check in that box. We really need to look at, the big picture, which is, again, 30 days to make a habit kind of stick. And after that, it gets much easier. And then your habit becomes just second nature. You don't even realize, you don't even think about it. You just do it. And that's the point that you're trying to get to.
What happens if people are listening to this and you're saying it's 30 days and they've gone, say, 16 days and fall off track? Is it hopeless, or can they get back on track and restart again?
Great question. So it's very normal to kind of have a little fallback. It's like take 2 steps backwards and 1 forward. You're still making progress even if you slip a little bit, because we're human. And then it's really hard for us to do something perfectly for that long. It's just something where you acknowledge, hey, you know what? I've gone 15 days walking around the block every day. So let me focus on that. And this one day I didn't, but, I had a cold, or, it was really cold out. And so, it's okay. I'll do it tomorrow. Those 15 days that you accomplish still count.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes you just need to give yourself a break too. It's okay to give yourself permission to skip your resolution a day. Sometimes it's just because of different reasons we just can't fulfill it, and that's perfectly fine. Again, you still have those 15 days under your belt.
Okay. Well, Dr. Sarkis, I want to thank you so much for coming on today and talking about New Year's resolutions. Before we get going, can you make sure you give out your contact information once again?
Sure. My website's stephaniesarkis.com. That's SephaniesArkis.com. And thank you so much for having me on, Tara.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Sarkis, and thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you for listening to the ADHD Support Talk Radio podcast. Remember, the ADHD Support Talk Radio podcast is sponsored by ADDclasses.com. Sign up now for a free webinar by going to www.addclasses.com. And if you have found this podcast helpful, please consider leaving a review on iTunes. The more reviews we have on iTunes, the easier it will be for people to find us on iTunes, which means more people will be helped. And if you have left a review for us in the past, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thanks again.